The galaxy had long believed humanity was gone. In council records, Earth was nothing more than a tragic story, a fallen species erased by war and swallowed by the darkness of time. Alien historians spoke of humans with pity, calling them bold, but fragile, dreamers who had reached too far and paid the price. To the younger races, they were a myth, a name written in dust, but myths have a strange way of returning when least expected. On the edge of the Maelstrom Rift, a region of space, feared even by the most advanced species, a shadow stirred. Beyond the storming clouds of plasma and lightning, deep where no scanner dared to look, fleets moved in silence. Their hulls bore scars of battles long forgotten, yet their cores burned with power. These were not wrecks of the past. They were ships alive with purpose, forged in exile, hardened by suffering. And on every vessel, a single flag still waved, blue and green, the emblem of Earth. For years, humanity had hidden in the abyss. Driven from their worlds by the merciless Zirak, hunted to the edge of extinction, they had vanished. To the galaxy, it was over. But in that abyss, the last survivors built armadas from broken metal and raw determination. They had no allies, no supply lines, no safe havens. What they had was will, and will, for humanity, had always been more powerful than any weapon. Admiral Elias Draven stood at the command deck of the flagship Resolute. His face was marked by years of war, scarred, stern, and unyielding. He had watched Earth fall, seen the colonies burn, and carried the screams of billions in his memory. Every breath he took was a promise to the dead. Now, as the fleet readied to move, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. "Admiral," said Commander Lyra Vance, his second-in-command, her voice steady, but her eyes sharp with anticipation. "Scouts confirm the rift is stable. The exit vector is clear." Draven nodded slowly. Around them, the crew worked with quiet intensity. These were not fresh recruits. They were children of war, born in exile, raised on steel decks instead of soil. They had never seen Earth, yet they carried it in their hearts like fire. To them, the planet was not memory, but destiny. The Admiral's voice rolled across the deck. "For generations, the galaxy has forgotten us. They believe we are ashes scattered on the wind. But tonight, we return, not as whispers, not as ghosts. We return as thunder." A silence followed, heavy with emotion. Some of the younger crew clenched their fists, others lowered their heads. Many had lost families to the rift's storms, sacrificed to keep the fleets alive. The moment was not just war. It was redemption. Far away in the halls of the Galactic Council, leaders of the surviving races debated the growing threat of the Zirak. Worlds were falling one by one, and the Alliance struggled to hold the line. They spoke of weapons and strategies, but no one spoke of humans. Why would they? Humanity was gone. Yet even as they dismissed the memory of Earth, the stars trembled, engines roared inside the rift, a sound not heard in centuries. Dozens of ships surged forward, their formation precise but flexible, alive with human instinct. Where alien fleets relied on cold algorithms, humans flew with something else. Intuition, chaos, the art of survival. They had learned from storms, learned from hunger, learned from death. The Resolute led the way, tearing through the rift's edge in a burst of light. One by one, the Armadas followed, emerging into open space, like phantoms reborn. The galaxies. Sensors caught the anomaly within moments. Across Alliance stations, alarms blared. Fleets scrambled to identify the sudden presence of hundreds of warships that should not exist. "Impossible!" gasped a Thaloran tactician as the data streamed in. "Those ships bear human design, but they were destroyed centuries ago." Whispers rippled through the council chamber. The insectoid Veyrak clicked in agitation, their wings rattling. "It is a trick, an enemy deception." But the truth could not be hidden. Humanity had returned, and they had not come quietly. Back on the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Draven looked out at the stars, his voice calm but burning with resolve. "Signal the fleet. We set course for the Alliance border. Let them see, with their own eyes, what they buried in their histories. Let them hear the roar of our engines." Commander Vance gave a faint smile, her hands moving across the controls. "The galaxy wanted us extinct. Let's remind them we don't die so easily." The fleet accelerated, leaving the abyss behind. For a moment, the stars seemed to bend, under the sheer force of their emergence, as if the universe itself held its breath. Humanity was no longer a myth. They were steel, fire, and fury, carried forward by grief and hope alike. Worlds would soon learn the truth. The abyss had not swallowed mankind. It had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before, and as the Armadas thundered across the dark, the legend of Earth was reborn. The Galactic Council chamber was a masterpiece of alien engineering. A vast dome of crystal and light where the most powerful species of the known universe gathered. Voices echoed in layered tones, deep growls, metallic clicks, melodic hums, each representing an empire, each carrying centuries of pride. For countless meetings, humanity's name had never been spoken. It was the past, a tragedy sealed in the records. But on this day, the chamber trembled with something it had not felt in ages: fear. A massive projection filled the center of the dome. Dozens of warships had been sighted emerging from the maelstrom. Rift, vessels thought impossible to build or sustain in that cursed void. Their designs were unmistakable, angular, resilient, scarred with battle yet alive with power. Their banners, however, left no doubt: blue and green. Earth, the Council, erupted into chaos. "This is not possible!" cried High Chancellor Virak of the insectoid Verak, his wings clattering. "Humans were destroyed. We saw the colonies burn." A Thalaran elder, shaped like a graceful serpent of water and light, spoke with calm dread. "And yet they return. It seems the abyss has been their refuge." Arguments collided like storms. Some demanded verification, some declared it a hoax, others whispered of ghosts. But the truth weighed on all of them. Humanity, thought extinct, was back, and they had returned not with pleas, but with armadas. At the far end of the chamber, Ambassador Seelith of the Erin leaned forward. Her people were telepaths, their pale forms elegant and quiet. She whispered into the tense air. "If they survived the rift, then they are stronger than before. What else have they learned in silence?" The room fell into uneasy silence. The Alliance had struggled for years against the Zyrak, losing world after world. Their fleets fought with order and precision, but the insectoid predators always adapted, always countered. Humanity had once been unpredictable, dangerous, unorthodox. And now, that chaos had returned. Far from the Council's debates, Admiral Elias Draven's fleet pressed forward. The stars stretched before them like a stage waiting for its actors. The Resolute led the formation, its engines roaring with defiance. On the bridge, Draven's eyes scanned the endless black, his mind a storm of memory. He remembered the last time he had seen this part of space: burning colonies, desperate evacuations, human fleets ripped apart by Zyrak swarms. That was when the galaxy had abandoned Earth, declaring humanity lost. But humanity had not surrendered. They had disappeared into the rift, carrying with them grief, rage, and a hunger to survive. Now they returned not as victims, but as warriors, forged in the abyss. Commander Lyra Vance approached, her voice low. "Council probes have picked us up. Their broadcasts demand identification." Draven smirked, a shadow of satisfaction crossing his face. "Then let's answer." Moments later, a transmission swept across Alliance space. The image of Admiral Draven filled their channels. Tired eyes, scarred face, but alive. His voice, carried the weight of centuries. We are humanity. We are not extinct. We are not ghosts. For every world we lost, we built 10 more in the fire of the abyss. For every fleet destroyed, we forged stronger steel. For every life taken, we vowed vengeance. You left us for dead, but death never claimed us. We endured. The message echoed across thousands of systems. On distant colonies, ordinary beings, farmers, traders, soldiers, stopped to listen. To them, humanity had always been a tale of tragedy. Now it was a story of impossible survival. In the council chamber, leaders stared in silence as Draven's image faded. High Chancellor Virak slammed his claws against the crystal table. This cannot be allowed. They bring war, not peace. They are reckless, violent, unstable. But not all agreed. Elder Thalaran whispered, "Perhaps reckless is what we need. The Zyrak adapt to us because we are predictable. Humanity is not. If they survived the abyss, they may hold the key." Ambassador Silith's eyes glowed faintly. I sense no deception in their message. Only pain. Only determination. Still, suspicion clouded the chamber. Humanity had once been allies, but they were also feared. Their hunger for exploration, their refusal to surrender, their emotions, all had seemed like flaws to more logical races. Yet now those very flaws might be the galaxy's salvation. Back aboard the Resolute, the fleet prepared for what came next. Some of the younger officers paced nervously, knowing the Council would not welcome them with open arms. To many, humans were dangerous reminders of instability. Lieutenant Arik Hale, barely 20, turned to Commander Vance. His voice trembled with both fear and pride. "Do you think they'll believe us? That we came back to fight, not conquer?" Vance placed a hand on his shoulder. "They don't have to believe us. They just have to see us." Admiral Draven gave the order. "Set course for the Alliance. Border. We go to them, not as beggars, not as slaves, but as equals. If they resist us, so be it, but they will know humanity stands once more." The fleet surged forward, engines flaring like comets across the dark. Their path cut straight toward the heart of the Alliance, toward the very leaders who had declared them dead. In the council chamber, alarms rang as human ships crossed the border. Massive fleets converged to block their path, warships of every alien race forming a wall of firepower. The council prepared for confrontation. Yet, as the human armadas emerged from warp, the galaxy witnessed something it had never seen before. Survivors who had become legends, warriors carrying the weight of extinction, a people who had risen from ashes into fire. No one spoke. No one breathed, because in that moment every being in the chamber understood. Humanity had not returned as the broken children of Earth. They had returned as the storm. The void between stars became a battlefield of silence. On one side, humanity's fleets stretched in sharp formations, scarred steel glowing with fire. On the other, the combined ships of the Galactic Alliance formed a wall of light, their designs elegant and alien, bristling with advanced weapons. The two forces stared at one another across the dark, waiting for the first spark. Inside the Alliance flagship, Orion, Supreme Marshal Zahra stood tall, her golden armor reflecting the glow of the command deck. She was Aurelian, tall and luminous, her species known for discipline and order. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the human fleet. "Primitive ships," she muttered, "held together by rust and will. Yet, they survived the rift." An officer bowed slightly. "Marshal, their presence threatens the stability of the Council. If we let them pass, they will disrupt everything." Zahra's lips tightened. "Or they may save us from the Zyrak. But either way, they must prove themselves." On the Resolute, Admiral Elias Draven watched the Alliance fleet appear like a wall of stars. His face was stone, his heart iron. But he knew what this moment meant. If humanity faltered, they would be erased again, this time for good. Commander Lyra Vance stood beside him. "They've locked weapons. They want us to stop." Draven nodded. "Then we speak." The comms opened. Across both fleets, his voice spread like thunder. "This is Admiral Elias Draven of the human Armada. You believed us extinct. You abandoned us. Yet here we stand. We did not return to beg, nor to conquer. We return because the Zirak threat grows, and you cannot stop them alone. We endured the abyss. We learned its storms. If you doubt us, test us. But know this, humanity does not break." His words carried weight, heavy with memory and fire. In the council chamber, his speech echoed. Some species shifted nervously, their minds caught between fear and awe. High Chancellor Virek struck the table with his claw. "Listen to him! Arrogant, dangerous! They return not as allies, but as a storm ready to swallow us. They must be destroyed before their fire spreads." But Elder Thalaran's voice was soft as flowing water. "No, do you not see? They are the chaos we lack. The Zirak always adapt because our fleets are predictable. Humanity survived where none did because they are not bound by our patterns. Their return may be the difference between survival and extinction." The chamber split in half, fear on one side, hope on the other. Back at the border, tension burned. Alliance fleets held formation, their weapons glowing like suns. On the Arian, Marshal Zara gave her final command. "Test them." A single volley fired. Bright energy beams streaked across space, aimed at disabling, not destroying. The humans reacted instantly. Their ships twisted and rolled in ways no alien captain could predict, weaving through fire like dancers in a storm. Lieutenant Arik Hale on the Resolute cried out, his eyes wide. "They're probing us!" Draven's voice was calm but fierce. "Then we show them what the Abyss taught us. All ships, scatter formation. Move as instinct, not as code." The human fleet broke apart, every vessel moving unpredictably. Where alien fleets flowed like machines, humans moved like chaos itself. Sharp turns, feints, reckless dives. The Alliance fire missed again and again. From the Orion, Marshal Zara's eyes widened. "Impossible! Their maneuvers are without pattern," an aide stammered. "Marshal, their ships are surviving." Zara leaned closer, her respect growing even as her suspicion deepened. On the Resolute, Commander Vance smiled grimly. "They wanted proof, Admiral. I think we're giving it to them." Draven's gaze never wavered. "Not proof of strength, proof of will." The battle simulation ended as quickly as it began. The Alliance stopped firing, their wall of ships holding position. For a long moment, the stars were silent again. Then a message came. Marshal Zara's face appeared on the screen, stern yet measured. "Admiral Draven," she said, her voice steady. "You claim humanity returns as ally, not conqueror. Your fleet has proven it is not fragile, but strength alone is not trust. If you wish to stand with the Alliance, then prove your intent. There is a Zirak swarm pushing into the Kelros sector even now. No fleet has survived them. Go there. If you endure, humanity will be recognized not as ghosts, but as warriors." The message ended. Draven's jaw tightened. He looked at his crew, each face hardened with determination. "So be it. We came from the Abyss. One more swarm will not end us." Commander Vance nodded firmly. "Then the galaxy will see us for what we are." In the council chamber, silence lingered after the announcement. Some races trembled at the thought of humans joining the fight. Others whispered of hope. Ambassador Silith of the Aran spoke softly, almost to herself. "They carry sorrow like armor. Perhaps that is why they endure." The council remained divided. But one truth had settled deep in every mind. Humanity was no longer extinct, no longer forgotten. They were back, and the galaxy would have to decide whether to fear their fire or embrace it. As the human fleets turned toward Kelros, the stars themselves seemed to pulse with anticipation. In every system, beings whispered the same words: the humans have returned. And in that return lay the promise of either salvation or the most dangerous storm the galaxy had ever seen. The Kelros sector had always been a place of beauty. Two suns lit its skies, and its scattered worlds shimmered with silver oceans and crystal mountains. But beauty had no meaning when the Zirak came. The swarm moved like a tide of living blades, their ships black and jagged, filling the void like a storm of claws. Entire colonies had gone silent within days. No fleet, no defense line had survived their hunger. Now, into that cursed battlefield came the sound of something long forgotten: human. Engines roaring out of warp, the Resolute emerged first, followed by the Armadas, scarred but burning with fire. Admiral Elias Draven stood tall on his command deck, his face lit by the crimson glow of battle alerts. He had seen worlds fall before, but this time was different. This time, humanity was not running. Commander Lyra Vance scanned the tactical display. Multiple Zirak signatures, hundreds, maybe more. They've locked onto us. Lieutenant Arik Hale whispered, his young voice trembling. It's like an ocean of teeth. Draven's voice cut through the fear. Then we'll teach the ocean to bleed. The swarm surged forward, their ships shrieking across comms in piercing static. Unlike the ordered fleets of the Alliance, the Zirak fought like predators. Fast, brutal, overwhelming. They rammed, they tore, they burned. Entire alien squadrons had fallen to them before a single strategy could form. But the humans had not come from quiet space. They had come from the Maelstrom Rift, a storm that taught survival through chaos. Scatter, Draven ordered. We fight the way they never expect. The human fleet broke apart, ships diving and twisting in wild arcs. The Zirak followed, but instead of prey, they found hunters. Frigates darted between the jagged cruisers, unleashing sudden bursts of fire. Destroyers feigned retreat, then spun back in suicidal angles to strike at weak points. Every move was reckless, unpredictable, perfectly human. On the Resolute, explosions painted the void outside the viewports. Commander Vance gripped the railing. They're confused. They don't know how to read us. Draven's lips curved in a grim smile. Good. Then we keep them guessing. The battle raged. The humans were outnumbered 5-1, but they fought like storms. Messy, violent, alive. Where the Zirak expected order, they found instinct. Where they expected retreat, they found defiance. Yet the cost was heavy. On the fleet's left flank, the frigate Horizon's Reach was torn apart, its dying fire scattering across the stars. On the right, a destroyer rammed a Zirak cruiser head-on, both ships vanishing in flame. Every life lost cut deep, but no one wavered. Lieutenant Hale's hands shook at his console. Admiral, we're losing ships too fast, Draven's voice was steel. Then make their deaths count. Humanity does not survive by numbers. We survive by refusing to fall. The words steadied the crew. Fear turned to fury. In the council chamber, light years away, the battle was broadcast across a vast hologram. Delegates watched in silence as the impossible unfolded. High Chancellor Virik clicked in disbelief. They should be annihilated. No fleet survives the swarm! But Elder Thalaran's eyes glowed faintly, awe in his voice. Look, they are not surviving. They are winning. The humans' unpredictability was tearing through the swarm. Every wild maneuver opened holes. In the Zirak formation, every sacrifice bought space for another strike. Where the Alliance saw disorder, humanity saw opportunity. Ambassador Silith whispered, "They carry death as memory, but they turn it into strength." For the first time in centuries, the council leaned forward, not to argue, but to watch. Back, in the Kelros fire, the swarm shifted. A massive Zarak dreadnought emerged, its body shaped like a colossal claw, bristling with weapons. Its shadow fell over the battlefield, dwarfing the human fleet. The crew of the Resolute went silent. Commander Vance muttered, That thing is a planet killer." Draven's eyes hardened. "Then we kill it first." He opened comms to the fleet. "All ships, listen well. That monster is their heart. Take it down, and the swarm will break. This is not survival anymore. This is our return. Humanity fights for every world that thought us dead." The fleet answered with roars. Across the comms, the attack began. Human destroyers dove straight at the dreadnought, weaving through its fire. Frigates darted around its armored limbs, striking joints and vents. The Resolute charged at its core, weapons blazing. The dreadnought roared back, unleashing storms of energy that ripped ships apart. But humans pressed on, each maneuver reckless, each strike desperate. Lieutenant Hale shouted, "We can't pierce its armor!" Commander Vance's eyes lit up. "But storms taught us something. You don't break walls. You ride around them." Draven caught the idea instantly. "Divert power. Aim for its reactors. Hit where it breathes." The Resolute fired a volley at a glowing seam along the dreadnought's flank. The blast tore through the armor, and a chain reaction began. Flames erupted from within, spreading like wildfire. The dreadnought writhed, its body cracking. One last desperate shriek echoed through the void before it exploded in a blinding burst of light. The swarm faltered. Leaderless, confused, they scattered. Humanity's fleet roared forward, cutting them down until the sector was free. Silence fell at last. The battlefield drifted with wreckage and fire, but humanity stood. Scarred, bloodied, but alive. On the Resolute, Admiral Draven closed his eyes for a moment, hearing the echoes of both the dead and the living. Then he opened them, his voice low but certain. "Signal the council. Tell them Kelros is safe. Tell them humanity has returned, not as victims, not as ghosts, but as fire." In the council chamber, the words arrived. For a moment, none spoke. Then Elder Thalaran rose, his voice echoing through the dome. "Mark this day. The galaxy believed humanity extinct. Yet in the flames of Kelros, they have proven what no other could. They endured. And across the stars, a truth spread like wildfire. Humanity had not only returned, they had lit the void with defiance." The news of Kelros spread like fire across the galaxy. Colonists in distant outposts whispered the impossible. Humans had not only returned, but had destroyed a Zarak dreadnought, something no Alliance fleet had ever achieved. In mining stations, in trade hubs, in the halls of scholars, the name human was spoken again, no longer as a ghost, but as a storm. But in the Grand Council chamber, awe quickly twisted into fear. The chamber glowed with shifting colors, each hue reflecting the voices of its members. Delegates of dozens of races filled the dome, their bodies shining, swaying, or clicking as they argued. At the center, a massive hologram replayed the final explosion of the Zarak dreadnought, the moment humanity had turned the tide. High Chancellor Virak slammed his clawed limbs on the table, his mandibles snapping. "This is a threat. Do you not see? If they can destroy a dreadnought with fleets held together by scraps, what will they do once they grow stronger? They are chaos made flesh." Others nodded nervously. To them, humans had always been unpredictable. Unlike the measured, logical strategies of other species, humans relied on instinct, emotion, and recklessness. That recklessness had somehow turned into victory, and that victory frightened them. But Elder Thalaran, his translucent body glowing like calm water, spoke in slow, steady tones. And yet, that chaos defeated what our order could not. You fear them because they are different. But perhaps difference is the strength we need. The council fell silent. The war against the Xerac had dragged on for decades. Whole systems had been lost. Fleets had been shattered. The idea that humanity, extinct in the eyes of the galaxy, had returned stronger shook every certainty. Ambassador Silith of the Erin rose gracefully. Her pale form shimmered as her voice filled the air. I touched their message. I felt no hunger for conquest. I felt grief turned into steel. I felt rage. But it was not blind, it was sharpened. We cannot dismiss them. They may be the weapon the galaxy has been waiting for. Her words stirred the chamber. But Virak hissed, or they may be the weapon that destroys us when they are finished with the swarm. His wings rattled sharply. Do you not remember their history? Even before the Xerac, they fought themselves. War upon war, fire upon fire. They are dangerous because they cannot stop fighting. Today they fight the swarm. Tomorrow it may be us. The chamber broke into uproar, voices clashing in a storm of fear and hope. Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Admiral Elias Draven stood in the quiet of his quarters. The walls hummed softly with the sound of the ship's heart. He stared at a small, old fragment of cloth on his desk, the tattered corner of an Earth flag. It was all that remained from the planet that once was home. Commander Lyra Vance entered, her voice gentle. The council is divided. Some call us saviors. Others call us threats. Draven did not look up. Both are true. Vance frowned. You don't sound surprised. Draven's voice was heavy with memory. We survived the rift, Lyra. But we did not come out untouched. We became something they do not understand. To them, we are a storm. And storms are feared as much as they are needed. Vance hesitated, then said, So what do we do? He finally turned to her, his eyes sharp with fire. We keep fighting. We show them what humanity is. Not myths, not monsters, survivors. In the council chamber, debate stretched on. The galaxy's leaders knew they faced a choice: embrace the return of humanity or resist it. Ambassador Silith raised her voice once more. If you deny them, you risk more than insult. They defeated the swarm where we failed. If you push them away, you will make enemies of the very force that could save us. But Virak struck back. And if we welcome them, we hand them power. They will never release. I say we hold them at the border. Let them bleed against the Xerac, but do not let their fire spread into our worlds. The chamber buzzed with division. No unity. No decision. At last, Marshal Zara of the Rylian military stood, her golden armor gleaming under the crystal light. She had watched the Kelros battle with her own eyes. She had seen what humans could do. Enough, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. I do not trust them, but I respect them. The swarm is advancing faster than ever. Without new strength, we all fall. Humanity has returned, whether we approve or not. The question is not if they will fight. It is whether they will fight beside us or alone. Her words left the chamber in silence. Back on the Resolute, a message came through. The council's decision was delayed. Fear and hope had tied their hands. Lieutenant Arik Hale clenched his fists. After Kelros, they still doubt us? Draven stood calmly at the center of the bridge. Let them doubt. We did not come for their approval. We came for survival. If the Alliance wants to watch, then we'll fight without them. And when the galaxy sees what we are, they will have no choice but to follow. The crew felt his words burn inside them. Humanity had fought alone before. They could do it again. As the Armadas moved toward their next front, the stars seemed to whisper with anticipation. The galaxy might hesitate, the council might divide. But one truth had already been written: humanity had risen from the abyss, and nothing could erase that fire. The galaxy buzzed with stories of Kelros. Traders spoke of human fleets dancing through fire. Refugees swore they had seen impossible courage with their own eyes. To ordinary people, humanity had become a symbol of hope. But in the high towers of power, hope often turned into fear. In the heart of the Galactic Council, secret meetings began to form behind closed doors. The chamber, once filled with loud arguments, now echoed with whispers. Not all were pleased with humanity's return. Some feared their strength, others envied their courage, and a few saw them not as allies, but as a threat greater than the swarm itself. High Chancellor Virek led these whispers. His insectoid mandibles clicked as he spoke to a circle of like-minded leaders. They are unpredictable, reckless, dangerous. If we allow them to grow stronger, they will reshape the balance of power. We must not let them. A pale, crystalline being from the Zephira leaned closer. But the people see them as saviors. To move openly against them would turn the galaxy against us, Virek hissed. Then we do not move openly. We weaken them quietly. Let them bleed. Let them vanish into the abyss once more. The plan was set in shadows. Far away, aboard the Resolute, Admiral Elias Draven studied maps of the front lines. The Zirak swarms were pushing into new sectors, overwhelming colonies faster than ever. Humanity's fleets were small compared to the Alliance, yet their victories burned brighter. Commander Lyra Vance entered with a report. Admiral, we've intercepted strange signals. Supply convoys promised by the Council never arrived. Instead, our ships found empty space. Or worse, wreckage. Draven's eyes narrowed. Sabotage, she nodded grimly. And there's more. Our scouts were ambushed near the Orden Belt, not by the Zirak, but by ships carrying Alliance signatures. Someone doesn't want us here. The bridge fell silent. Young officers stared at one another, anger and disbelief rising in their faces. Lieutenant Arik Hale finally spoke, his voice sharp. After Kelros, after we bled for them, they betray us? Draven's face was calm, but his voice carried steel. Not the people, the leaders. Fear is louder in council chambers than gratitude. Remember this. We fight for survival, not for their applause. That night, Draven walked alone to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant, yet they felt closer than the council ever had. He touched the tattered Earth flag he carried and whispered, "We were abandoned once. We survived. We'll survive again." Behind him, Commander Vance approached quietly. The crew knows something is wrong. They sense the betrayal. If we lose their faith, Draven turned, his eyes burning. We won't. Humanity doesn't fight because leaders believe in us. We fight because we believe in each other. That is something no council can destroy. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Then let's remind them of it. The betrayal grew sharper days later. The humans launched a mission to protect the colony of Renalis, a world on the edge of the swarm's path. But when they arrived, they found nothing. No reinforcements, no supplies, no warning of the Zirak ambush waiting in orbit. The swarm descended like a black tide, shields at maximum, Vance shouted as the Resolute shook under fire. Dozens of human ships fought desperately, but the Zirak were too many. Explosions lit the void as frigates fell one by one. Lieutenant Hale screamed over the comms, "We're surrounded! Where is the Alliance fleet?" "They promised to hold the line." Draven's jaw tightened. He had expected betrayal, but the reality burned deeper than any wound. The Council had left them to die, yet even surrounded, the humans did not yield. "Break formation," Draven commanded. "Fight like the Rift taught us. Give them chaos." The fleet scattered into wild maneuvers. Ships weaved between Zyrak cruisers, striking weak points and vanishing into debris fields. Destroyers rammed into enemies at suicidal angles, tearing holes in the swarm. The humans bled, but they refused to fall. On the bridge, sparks rained, from consoles as the Resolute shook. Commander Vance gritted her teeth. "We can't hold forever," Draven's voice thundered. "We don't hold forever. We hold long enough." And somehow, they did. After hours of fire and fury, the swarm faltered, retreating into the void. The price was heavy, half the fleet lost, thousands dead, but Renalis still stood. News of the battle spread faster than the Council could hide it. Refugees from Renalis told stories of human ships fighting alone, abandoned yet unbroken. Across the galaxy, the tale grew. Humanity had bled again, not because of weakness, but because of betrayal. And still, they had endured. In the council chamber, whispers turned into fear. The very betrayal meant to weaken humanity had instead given them something greater: sympathy, admiration, and legend. Ordinary citizens across dozens of worlds began asking the same question. Why do humans fight for us when our own leaders abandon them? Virak slammed his claws in frustration. Fools! Every battle makes them stronger in the eyes of the people. If we are not careful, they will become more than survivors. They will become symbols. But it was already too late. Humanity had survived betrayal as they had survived extinction. Their fire only burned brighter. On the Resolute, the survivors gathered in silence. Some wept for the fallen, others clenched their fists in fury. But when Admiral Draven stood before them, his voice carried strength enough for all. They wanted us gone. They wanted us forgotten. Yet here we stand. Broken ships, broken bodies, but not broken hearts. Remember this night, not as the night we were betrayed, but as the night we proved what we are. We are humanity. We endure the storm. We endure the lies. And we will endure until victory is ours. The crew erupted in roars, their voices echoing through steel halls, and beyond the ship, across the galaxy, those words began to spread, quiet at first, then louder with every whisper. Humanity had been betrayed, but humanity had not been defeated. The galaxy was restless. Stories of Renalis spread like fire in dry fields. On trading stations, in mining colonies, and across war-torn worlds, people whispered of humanity's defiance. The official records from the Galactic Council told a different story, carefully written lies that painted the humans as reckless fighters who had brought losses upon themselves. But the common folk did not believe it. They had seen with their own eyes, and they trusted the survivors more than the Council. In hidden places, old songs of resistance returned, and everywhere the word human became not just a name, but a symbol. Aboard the Resolute, Admiral Elias Draven read the falsified reports in silence. His hand tightened around the data slate until the screen cracked. He tossed it aside and stared, out the wide viewport at the stars. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion, it was truth, written in lies. Commander Lyra Vance entered, her face pale with anger. The Council claims they warned us about the swarm. They say we ignored orders. They're painting us as fools, Elias. Draven's voice was low but steady. They are not trying to shame us. They are trying to erase us. Lieutenant Arik Hale, young and hot-blooded, slammed his fist against the table. So what now? Do we bow and smile while they spit on our dead? Or do we make them fear us? The bridge crew grew quiet. The question was dangerous, but it hung in the air. Draven turned slowly. His gaze was sharp, but his words carried weight. We do not seek fear, we seek truth, and the truth will be our weapon. In the weeks that followed, humanity's fleet drifted across the outer sectors, cut off from supplies, running on scraps. Yet their spirit only hardened. Each ship became a floating reminder of survival, patched together, scarred, but unbroken. Vance took charge of gathering evidence. She ordered scouts to infiltrate communication arrays to intercept messages between council factions. Slowly, a dark web of betrayal revealed itself. Secret orders, rerouted supplies, false reports of human recklessness, and names, leaders who had conspired against them. One night she laid the files before Draven in the war room. Here it is, proof, enough to shake the council to its core. Draven studied the glowing symbols. His voice was heavy. This is not just betrayal of us. It is betrayal of every world that still hopes for salvation. Hale leaned forward. Then let's show them. Let's put the truth in the hands of the people. For the first time in days, Draven allowed himself a faint smile. Yes, let the galaxy see who bleeds for them and who lies. Their chance came sooner than expected. An emergency council meeting was called on the world of Seraphis Prime, the jewel of the Alliance. Every leader would attend, desperate to decide the future of the war. Humanity was not invited, but they went anyway. Resolute arrived in orbit, scarred and battered, escorted by ships that looked more like survivors than warriors. Their hulls bore burn marks and patched plates, their banners torn, yet they carried a presence no pristine fleet could match. The council chamber fell silent when Admiral Draven entered with his officers. His uniform was torn, his face lined with exhaustion, but his steps were steady. He carried no weapon, only a simple projection sphere. High Chancellor Virak's mandibles clicked sharply. You were not summoned. Humanity has no seat here. Draven's voice carried across the chamber, calm but cutting. Humanity has earned its seat in blood, and we will be heard. With emotion, he activated the sphere. Images filled the chamber, secret transmissions, intercepted orders, evidence of betrayal laid bare before the eyes of every delegate. Gasps filled the air as the truth unraveled, the sabotage, the abandoned convoys, the lies. A crystalline delegate from Zephyra trembled. This cannot be true. Vance stepped forward. It is true, and while you argued in comfort, our people died in the dark, alone. The chamber erupted. Some leaders shouted in denial, others turned their fury on Virak. But amid the chaos, something else stirred. Applause. It began with one delegate, then another, until half the chamber stood in support of the humans. Virak hissed in rage. You dare accuse this council? You dare challenge the Alliance itself? Draven's reply was sharp as a blade. No, we dare remind the galaxy what courage looks like. Outside, crowds gathered around the transmission screens, watching the horror drama unfold live. For the first time, they saw not just lies, but truth, raw and undeniable. And as they watched, something powerful awakened in them. On mining colonies, workers raised fists in solidarity. On trading stations, merchants cheered. The humans. Even on worlds far from the war, ordinary people began to demand change. The Council's lies had shattered. Humanity's defiance had lit a spark too bright to extinguish, but hope always drew enemies. That night, as the humans prepared to leave Seraphis Prime, assassins struck. Blaster fire tore through the docking bay, shadows moving with deadly precision. Officers fell, alarms blared, chaos erupted. Draven fought his way through the smoke, dragging wounded men behind cover. Vance fired back with cold precision, her voice cutting through the storm. They want to silence us before the truth spreads. Hale's eyes burned with fury. Then let's show them we don't die quietly. The humans fought with the same desperate fire they had shown in space. And though the assassins were skilled, they could not match the raw will of survivors who had nothing left to lose. When the smoke cleared, the assassins lay defeated. The humans stood bloodied but alive. And already, whispers of the attack spread through the city. The people saw who fought, who survived, and who wanted them silenced. Back aboard the Resolute, Draven looked at his crew. Their faces were tired, wounded, but burning with something stronger than anger. They tried to erase us. They tried to silence us. But now the galaxy knows we are not shadows in the dark. We are not forgotten. We are the fire that will not die. His words echoed through the ship and beyond, carried by rumor and voice, until whole worlds began to repeat them, and somewhere in the cold abyss, the swarm stirred, hungrier than ever. The war was not over. It was only beginning. The galaxy shifted after Seraphis Prime. Humanity, once dismissed as weak survivors, became a symbol of defiance. On mining colonies, children carved the human emblem into walls. On war-torn planets, soldiers whispered human names before battle. The spark had turned into fire, and it spread faster than the Council could contain. But fire always drew darkness. Admiral Elias Draven stood in the command chamber of the Resolute, the stars of the Seraphis system stretched before him. His officers gathered close, tired but burning with quiet determination. "We have revealed the truth," Draven said, his voice low but steady. "But truth alone cannot win this war. The Council still controls the fleets. The swarm still devours worlds. If we fight alone, we will vanish. But if we unite the galaxy, then we rise." His words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Commander Lyra Vance leaned forward, her sharp eyes gleaming. "Worlds are listening, Elias. I have intercepted messages from 3 colonies already. They want to join us. They just need someone to believe in." Lieutenant Arik Hale smirked, despite the bandages on his arm. "They'll believe when they see what we can do. Let's give them a reason to fight." Their first test came sooner than expected. A desperate call reached the Resolute from a world called Kareth. The swarm had descended, tearing cities apart with endless wings and burning claws. The Council had abandoned it, labeling the planet as non-essential. But for the humans, no life was disposable. Draven did not hesitate. "Set course. We hold the line at Kareth." The fleet jumped into the system battered, outnumbered, but unafraid. The swarm was already there. Dark clouds blotting out the skies of Kareth, raining fire upon its people. "Status?" Draven demanded. "Enemy numbers overwhelming," Vance replied, her fingers racing across the console. "But their formation is spread thin. They think this is already theirs." Draven's eyes hardened. "Then let's remind them. Humanity does not surrender." The battle exploded in the skies. Human ships weaved through the swarm like wolves among giants, striking with precision. Missiles pierced through insectoid armor, turrets roared fire, and boarding parties fought tooth and nail inside alien carriers. On the surface of Kareth, people looked up through smoke and ruin and saw ships fighting for them. Not Council fleets. Not mercenary vessels. Humans. For the first time in years, they felt hope. Inside the bridge, alarms screamed as enemy fire shook the Resolute. Panels sparked, smoke filled the air, but Draven did not flinch. "Redirect power to forward shields," he ordered. Vance glanced at him. "That will leave our flank exposed." "Do it," Draven said calmly. "They will expect hesitation. We give them boldness instead." The maneuver worked. The Resolute broke through the swarm line, smashing, straight into their command vessel. Human Marines stormed aboard, led by Arik Hale himself. Hale fought like fire unleashed. His rifle spat bolts of light, his voice rallying soldiers through the chaos. For Earth, for every world they left behind. The swarm screeched and clawed. But Hale pressed on until the alien command vessel erupted in flames. The swarm faltered, their hive coordination broken. On the surface of Kareth, cheers rose through the shattered streets. Humanity had done the impossible. They had saved a world the Council had abandoned. When the smoke cleared, Draven stood before the surviving leaders of Kareth. His uniform was torn, his face marked with battle's soot, but his voice carried like thunder. The council left you to die. We did not. We are not gods. We are not perfect. But we are human, and humanity does not abandon the helpless. If you want freedom, if you want truth, then rise with us, together. Silence followed. Then the governor of Kareth, an elder with trembling hands, bowed deeply. From this day, Kareth stands with humanity. The crowd roared, and in that roar, a movement was born. News of Kareth spread across the stars faster than the council could contain. Entire worlds began to question their leaders. Soldiers deserted council fleets to join the humans. Merchants smuggled supplies to the resistance. Everywhere, the whisper grew louder. The humans fight for us, but with every ally gained, enemies grew sharper. High Chancellor Virik stood before the council, his mandibles quivering with rage. If we do not crush the humans now, they will tear this alliance apart. Some delegates murmured agreement, but others stayed silent, unwilling to speak against the rising tide of hope. The council itself was fracturing. Back on the Resolute, Draven knew what this meant. They will come for us with everything they have, the swarm, the council. We will be hunted by all sides. Vance met his gaze, her expression calm but fierce. Then let them come. They underestimate us still. That is their mistake. Hale laughed softly, exhaustion in his voice but fire in his eyes. We've been underestimated since the first stars we touched, and every time, we've proven them wrong. Draven turned to the viewport, watching the stars burn with silent promise. Then we will do it again, and this time the galaxy will remember. The fleet grew with every day. Refugees, deserters, rebels, dreamers, they all gathered under the human banner. Ships of every shape and size formed a strange, mismatched armada, patched and scarred, yet united. And at the heart of it all, humanity stood, not as the forgotten, not as the erased, but as the fire no darkness could smother. But far beyond their sight, in the cold void where even starlight feared to linger, the swarm stirred again. Broken, yes, but never defeated. Their hive queen whispered across the void, her voice echoing through the minds of countless spawn. Humans, she hissed, they fight like fire. Then we will drown them like water. The next storm was already rising, and humanity, scarred but unyielding, was ready to meet it. The galaxy trembled on the edge of chaos. The swarm gathered like a storm cloud across a dozen systems, their queen weaving her will into endless ranks of claws and wings. The council, divided and fearful, secretly plotted to destroy humanity, before their rebellion grew unstoppable. Between the two powers, the human fleet stood, a patchwork armada of survivors, dreamers, and warriors who refused to bow. Admiral Elias Draven gazed at the star map inside the Resolute's war room. Red markers covered the chart, 1,000 threats converging on one truth. Humanity's final test had arrived. Around him stood Lyra Vance, sharp-eyed and calm as ever, and Auric Hale, still bandaged from battles past, but grinning like a man. Born for fire. They will strike at once, Vance said quietly. The swarm from above. The council from behind. They hope to crush us between hammer and blade. Draven nodded slowly. Then we make their arrogance our weapon. His voice carried steady steel. They believe us broken. They believe us weak. Tonight they will learn what it means to stand against humanity. The battle began at the edge of the Valoris Nebula, where starlight burned red like dying embers. The human armada drifted there, mismatched ships patched together from countless worlds. On their hulls were painted names of Earth's lost cities, New York, Cairo, Karachi, Tokyo, symbols of a home long turned to ash but never forgotten. Then the darkness arrived, The swarm poured from the void in endless numbers, their wings, blotting out the stars. Behind them, sleek council warships entered formation, weapons charged. On the bridge of the Resolute, silence fell. Every soul felt the weight of that moment, the choice between despair and defiance. Draven rose. "This is not the end," he declared, voice ringing across the comms to every allied ship. "This is the beginning. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We fight, not for conquest, but for every soul the Council abandoned, for every world the swarm tried to devour. Today, we stand together. Today, we show the galaxy what it means to be human." A thunder of voices answered across the fleet. "For humanity, for freedom." And the last dawn began. The swarm struck first, a black tide slamming into human defenses. Explosions tore across the void as smaller frigates vanished under fire. Yet the humans fought with precision. They used broken asteroids as cover, lured the swarm into ambushes, and struck at weak points with savage efficiency. Vance directed the fleet like a conductor guiding a storm. "Redirect shields! Hold line Alpha! Push the frigates through the nebula!" Meanwhile, the Council fleet swept in from the flank, their weapons gleaming like spears of cold light. They unleashed devastation upon both swarm and humans alike, hoping to burn away all threats. "They're hitting everyone," Hale shouted over the comms. "They want us gone no matter the cost," Draven growled. "Then we turn cost into victory." Deep, inside the swarm's vanguard, Hale led a daring strike. His dropship pierced through the chaos, flames licking its hull as enemy fire rained down. With a roar, it crashed into a massive swarm carrier. Hale leapt into the smoke, rallying his squad. "Forward! Cut the heart out of this beast!" Blades and claws clashed with steel and fire. The Marines fought like wolves cornered, every blow fueled by desperation and defiance. Hale pushed toward the central core, planting explosives with trembling hands. "This is for Earth," he whispered, and the carrier erupted in a firestorm that split the swarm's formation apart. But even as victories sparked, the tide grew heavier. More swarm ships poured from the abyss. Council dreadnoughts tightened their noose. The human fleet was burning, bleeding, breaking. Vance turned to Draven, her face pale. "We can't win by force. Not against both." Draven closed his eyes for one long second. Then he looked at her with quiet fire. "Then we win by being human." He activated the fleet-wide channel once more. "To every world listening," he said, voice raw with truth. "The Council thinks you are powerless. The swarm thinks you are prey. But humanity is neither. We survived extinction. We returned from the void itself. And tonight, we do not fight alone. Rise with us. If you hear my words, fight back. Not tomorrow. Now." For a breath, silence answered. Then, across the galaxy, sparks ignited. On a dozen Council worlds, soldiers turned their guns against their masters. Colonies long abandoned launched their hidden fleets. Even oppressed species rose, emboldened by human defiance. The Council's warships hesitated as half their crews mutinied. The swarm faltered, their coordination fractured by sudden strikes on their rear. Humanity's call had become a storm. On the bridge of the Resolute, Vance's eyes widened as fresh ships appeared on sensors. "Admiral, they're coming. From everywhere, whole fleets are rising." Draven allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "Then the galaxy has remembered." The mismatched Armada surged forward with newfound fury. Humans and allies alike tore through swarm lines, shattered Council formations, and lit the nebula with fire and hope. The battle became chaos. But chaos was where humanity thrived. In the end, the Swarm Queen herself was dragged into the open, her colossal vessel encircled. Hale, bruised and bloodied, stood once more at the forefront. His voice cracked but steady. "We finish this. Together." Torpedoes, beams, and missiles struck as one. The Queen's vessel split apart in a blaze that shook the stars. Across the swarm, the creatures shrieked and fell silent, their hive severed. The Council fleet broke soon after, crippled by betrayal and rebellion. The once mighty rulers of the galaxy scattered like frightened insects. When the smoke cleared, the stars of Valoris shone again. The human fleet, scarred and battered, floated victorious. On the bridge, Draven stood in silence, watching the endless horizon. Around him, his crew wept, laughed, and embraced. The impossible had been done. Humanity had not only survived, it had lit a fire that could never be extinguished. Vance approached him softly. "What happens now?" Draven's voice was quiet but unshakable. "Now the galaxy learns to live free, and it will remember who showed them the way." Far beyond the stars, whispers spread. Across broken colonies, across liberated worlds, across the ruins of empires, the name human was no longer spoken with pity or dismissal. It was spoken with awe, for humanity had risen from extinction, stood against the impossible, and won. And in that victory, the galaxy saw the truth. The last line of hope had never been lost. It had only been human,